Hi, my name is Ken and welcome to this video tutorial on how to create and use development plans in SimPeople. So the first thing you'll notice is that we have a new option called Performance available from the main menu. And we use this for creating and managing development plans. You place your cursor over Performance to activate the drop-down menu, and from the drop-down you select Development Plans. You can also just click Performance. That brings us to the development plan part of SimPeople. So the highlighted area is where your development plan will be shown once we've created it. You can use these filters to create a better overview of previous development plans. Now for 2015-16, it is recommended that you only have one development plan, so it's not terribly useful at this stage, but going forward it's going to be nice to be able to filter through the different development plans that you have. To begin the process of creating a development plan in SimPeople, simply click Create. And from this screen, you will start the process of creating your development plan. So for this example, let's assume that I wanted to move into APL development and create a development plan with that in mind. The first thing I need to do is I need to give my development plan a title. Now we do recommend that you give development plans a descriptive title. So I'll just call it Development Plan 2015/16. It's not terribly creative, admittedly, but it is very descriptive. The next item is progress. Now this shows you how far you've progressed with the completion of the development plan that you create. So at this stage, this is very sensibly set to 0% since I haven't done anything yet. At this stage, we're not using categories, so we can ignore that. Now status is pretty much what it says it is. It tells you what status your development plan is in. So right now it is set to new, and we'll get more into how status works once we move through the process of creating a development plan. The next part is the description field. So as part of your mid-year EPR talk with your manager, you should have discussed the development activities that you want to undertake over the next 12 months. And these should obviously be aligned with both your EPR objectives and your career aspirations that you've agreed with your manager. Now, I'll just write a very short description here, but it is highly recommended that you capture all the details of your development talk and put those into the description part of your development plan. There are a couple of formatting options. They should be pretty self-explanatory, so I don't want to get into that at length. You do have a fairly limited amount of screen real estate to work with, so if you want to write it out in Word, create a better, just to have a better overview, that's certainly an option, and then you can just copy-paste it into SimPeople. And that's it. Now we've provided the baseline information needed for the development plan, and we can now get started to actually create it. So you can see we have two options. We have one called Add Recommended Training and one called Add Objective. And this is a little misleading because you should only use Add Objective. Now Group HR is currently running a pilot on SimCorp's new competency framework for selected parts of the business. And the Add Recommended Training is the link between our new competency profiles and the development plan. Now, this will be available for everybody from the next mid-year EPR, but for now you should ignore it, but it is something that is very much worth looking forward to. So for now, to get started, we simply click Add Objective. Now you can see we get a new section added to the development plan that we can work with. The first thing we need to do is we need to give the objective a title. An objective is just the terminology used in SimPeople for creating different parts of your development plan. So since we made the assumption that I wanted to improve my APL skills, we'll use that as the objective title. The next thing we want to do is we want to set an objective category. Now this is not mandatory, but it is highly recommended since it's a great way of structuring your development plan. You can select from the following list, future/career objectives, and you use this if the objectives specifically support your future development or career aspirations. We have one called support of EPR objective. You use this if the objective is to support your ability to complete your EPR objectives. And the last one, general development, you use this for objectives that are not covered by the above. So since the example that we have here is I wanted to move into APL, I'll set the objective category to future/career objectives. The next step is to add activities to the development plan, and this is done using these icons that are highlighted. The first icon is called Add Training. This allows you to search all of the content that is available on SimPeople and add it to your development plan. This is a great feature that allows you to pick from the great list of content that we have available. The second is called Add Action Step, and it covers all other activities that are not listed in SimPeople. So this could be learning from others or learning through experience. We'll get into more details about exactly what that means a little later. The last icon deletes the objective, and this is a recurring icon that you can use to delete activities or objectives. So anytime you see a small trash can, it means that you can delete something. So let's start by clicking the Add Training icon. So you remember Add Training was where we went into SimPeople and selected training that was available through our course catalog. So the first thing you see is we get this pop-up window that allows us to browse for training. At the top, we have a list of filters that we can use to narrow down our search. So you can see we have online class, quick course, events, curriculum, etc. Or we can search by title, description, or language. So I want training that's related to APL, so I write APL in the description field and I hit search. So what I then get is a list of all the material that we have available on SimPeople that has APL in its description. And I can scroll down through this list and I can find the exact training that I want. So luckily, the first item that pops up, APL for non-developers, seems like just the training I'm looking for. So to select it, I click the little plus icon next to the title. And the course has now been added to my development plan under the objective Develop My APL Skills. I also need to set a due date by using the calendar function. And this should be pretty self-explanatory, but this is where you indicate when an activity should be completed. And you need to add a due date to all the activities that you include in your development plan. Now we can continue to add training and create our development plan based on that, but for now we'll leave it at just this one course. The process for adding additional training is exactly the same as I just shown you. But we want to continue because we also want to add action steps to our development plan. Now remember that action steps are all the activities that are not listed in SimPeople. And we want to get into exactly what that means. So we start by just clicking the icon. And as you can see, we get a new part added to our objective. And we want to start by looking at the activity category here. So from here, you can select between the following. You have 10% formal learning, 20% learning from others, and 70% learning through experience. This obviously relates to the 70-20-10 principle. That's always been a core part of our learning philosophy in SimCorp. But now we want to put even more focus on it, and we want to make it an explicit part of our development plans. I don't want to get into the details of the model. I'm sure most of you have a working understanding of 70-20-10. This model will be available from the welcome page on SimPeople if you want to look at it. But there are just a couple of points that I want to stress here. The first one is that it's very, very important to understand that 70-20-10 is not a rigid model where you have to weigh the exact percentages out when you create a development plan. It's not like we're creating a dessert here. This is much more haute cuisine. So the model speaks as much to impact as it speaks to volume, meaning that you can get more impact by learning through experience than through formal learning. That's one way of viewing the model. And the best use of 70-20-10 is to make sure that you have the right mix of activities that will enable you to learn, so that you pick the right mix of the 10, 20, and 70 activities that gives you a recipe for success, if you will. So the course we just added using ad training from SimPeople is more or less obviously part of the 10% formal learning. And formal learning is a great way of getting into a subject, but it usually cannot stand alone. It needs to be coupled with other activities in order for it to be really effective. So let's try to create an action step that covers the 20% learning from others part of the model. So the first thing we do is we simply set the category. Now that's the easy part, right? The hard part is finding activities that fit and will support you. So I have an objective called develop my APL skills. I've already selected a 10% course, formal learning course, that'll give me an introduction to APL that fits my background. Now for the 20% learning from others, now I want to be mentored by the best. So I put into my development plan that I want to have 5 one-on-one coaching sessions with the APL lead expert. Now I think that's a great example of how this should work. It's not necessarily a terribly realistic example. It's not possible for our lead experts to do individual coaching, but just to give you an idea about what we mean by the 20%. So you can see there's also a progress bar. Now this needs to be updated manually. So for this example, once I've had my first coaching session, I can set status to 20%. And this is then added together with all the other activities that I have for an overall progress. And this is done automatically for steps that are added through ad training. So if you have a course that you've selected that is available from SimPeople, it is automatically updated in terms of progress. Now it's not possible to add weights to objectives, training, or actions, so everything counts the same. So let's go back to the model and say finally we also want to include the 70% learning through experience in our development plan. And the first thing we need to do here is then we need to add an additional action step. So I simply click the icon and I fill it out using the exact same steps as I previously described. And for the 70% part, I've added being assigned as a developer on an APL development project. So this is where I actually get hands-on experience using all the stuff that I've learned. So this is just an example of how you could build a development plan that mirrors the 70-20-10 philosophy. And that's basically it. Now we've created a development plan. Now, once you start to create your own development plan, you can continue to add objectives and add courses and actions until you have a complete plan for the developing activities you want to undertake. And it is likely to be quite a bit longer than what we have on screen right now. So this is only to give you an idea about how the system works and how you should set it up. Now, you can also, before finalizing, you can add comments to the development plan using the plus icon in the comment section. The history section allows you to review previous versions of your development plan. So if you have back and forth with your manager about how exactly your development plan should look, you'll be able to go back and see previous versions of it. So down here at the bottom, we have a number of options. Now, at any time, you can use the Save as Draft button to save your work and return to it later. But you should note that any changes you've made when you use the Save as Draft button are only visible for you. So they're not submitted to your manager, and as such, the approval process cannot begin. So once you've completed your development plan and you're happy with it, then you click Submit. And what happens then is that the plan is sent to your manager asking for approval. So again, I just want to stress this. It's important that your development plan should reflect the development talk that you and your manager have had as part of the MyAPR process. So what you put into your development plan should not come as a shock to your manager, and the comments you get back from your manager should not be a shock to you. This should be something that you've talked about, that you've agreed on. That is what we put into the development plan. So I want to finish this, so I click Submit. And I then go back to the main development plan overview. And you can see I now have a development plan listed. You can see that status is set to pending acceptance approval, meaning that your manager needs to take action before the plan is approved. Now, let's say that I clicked submit and I forgot I wanted something else. There was a great course that I actually wanted to include in my plan, or there was a point that we had agreed on that I simply forgot to put in. So at any time you can go back in and you can edit your development plan. You can do this even while the status is pending acceptance approval. So you simply click the edit icon and you go back into your development plan, and it's the same functionality as I've just gone through. And here I've just added an external APL course that is not on SimPeople, and I've set it as part of the 10% formal learning. So this is a formal course. It's provided by an external vendor. It's not something that's accessible through SimPeople. And resubmitting is as simple as clicking the submit button again. So once I've done that and my manager approves, I'll get a mail informing me that my manager has approved. And you can see that status is now in progress. Now, it is obviously also possible that your manager rejects your development plan. You will also get a mail then telling you that your development plan has been denied. In that case, you need to review the notes that your manager has included in the rejection and make the appropriate changes and then resubmit. And this is done using the exact same functionality as a normal edit. It is important to stress here that you do not have a development plan until your status says in progress. But here we're good. The manager has accepted the development plan and status is set to in progress. So now we can actually live the development plan. So let's start with the options. Now from here you can edit your development plan. This is what we just went through. You can make a copy. This is not something that we recommend that you do. You can cancel. This is also not something that we recommend you do. Or you can print as a PDF, which is actually something that we highly recommend that you do. It's a great way of just having, keeping top of mind that you have a development plan that you need to complete. To actually work with the development plan, you click the plan on the plan title. And this brings you to this overview of your development plan. You should be able to recognize it from what we just did. So for items you've added using ad training, you will need to use the request button to activate this. And this is just like the normal procedure for requesting training on SimPeople. We already talked a little about updating the progress bar for the steps that you've added using add action step. So these are done manually. And then you simply click submit when you're done to update. That's it. You're now ready to start creating and using development plans in SimPeople. Enjoy.